Welcome back to the show. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You have reached Sonic Weekly. Hello. Grant speaking, one of your hosts. We talk about Sonic most of the time every week, but not always. Not always, but we always do talk about Sonic in some way. But what is there to say about Sonic this week? Find out. Listen along. Well, it's not just me here. You know that. Because here is Bo. Hi, Bo.
Speed me up. Hey, as a warning, this show will contain spoilers for something related to Sega in the last 35 years. Not sure what, but something.
Absolutely true. And what's also true is that the light of our lives, the star of the show, out from the shadows into the spotlight, David the Lurker is here. Hi, David.
Whoa, hi, Grant. Hi, Bo. That's right. I'm sparkling. You're sparkling. We're blinding you by the light, living loose like a deuce.
Yeah.
Not a douche.
No, it's everyone thinks it's douche.
Right. It's because of the cover. Oh, who does the cover?
Manfred Mann.
You're thinking of Manfred Mann.
Manfred Mann, right.
Yeah.
Their name is escaping me because a lot of people forget that is a Bruce Springsteen song originally, where you can understand it a bit more.
But the lyrics still make no more sense. Wrapped up like a deuce is not a sensible thing to say.
No, certainly isn't.
I never,
it sounds better when it comes out of the boss's mouth.
As many things
Manfred
do.
Mann had another hit, covering Bob Dylan for Quinn.
Dr. Quinn?
Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. He did the theme song. No, that's not true. But you know who is neither medicine nor a woman, but is a friend of the show and part of the team Sonic Weekly, capturing footage every week for YouTube. Part of the team. It's Jack of Old Games. Back to the show. Hi, Jack.
Can I interest you in a game of Lucky Hit?
Yes.
Yes. Can I save right before, though?
Encouraged in the world of Shenmue 3 gambling.
I'm good then. Yeah, let's do it. I can't lose.
We're going to talk about Shenmue mostly this week. You see it from the episode description. Yu Suzuki. It's a Wii Suzuki. Ooh, no, don't do that joke. That's a terrible joke. What is that? A Konnichiwa type joke? That's like borderline racist joke. Okay, let's instead say something like, we're going to talk a lot about Shenmue this week and Yu Suzuki and all of it. But first, we do have to talk about Sonic. Sonic is the wind beneath our wings, and it feels like we have gone through all the Sonic things, so maybe there's not a ton of Sonic news this week. You would think. But David, there is news this week.
Yes, there's always Sonic news because someone somewhere is thinking about Sonic and dealing with Sonic, wishing they were Sonic. Right. There's not a ton of breaking news from Sega. I guess apparently Sonic 3 is now number 9 in the top 10 highest grossing movies of 2024. We'll say that it passed Kung Fu Panda 4 and Godzilla X Kong New Empire. That's what CBR tells me, comic book resources, which people still use. Might as well throw it out there because we've talked about movies forever. I'm sure we could ask Jack in a second how he felt about Sonic 3.
Good idea.
In fact, we could do that right now,
Jack,
before we do any more news.
Jack, the big news is, what do you feel about Sonic 3?
I didn't love this movie like I think most people who listen to this podcast do. I kind of...
Wii U, the freaking thought police are coming, baby.
The viewership counts are going down right now.
Yeah. I kind of thought this was the weakest entry in the series.
Whoa! That is a surprising hot take. Elaborate, please.
Wait, so what's your ranking?
I like how I would rate the movies.
Yeah,
it's 2-1-3. It's 2-1-3.
Oh,
2-1-3.
okay.
Well, where's Knuckles in that as well?
I liked Knuckles better than 3.
Wow.
So,
Oh, wow.
2-1 Knuckles 3. I think you might be the only person on the planet with this ranking. So we are honored to have this take debut on Sonic Weekly. Forget about Blue Sky X.
Does anybody have that ranking? That ranking for the 90s games?
What is it? 2-1
Knuckles 3.
Knuckles 3.
Nobody does.
Surely somebody.
I could make that argument because Sonic 3's soundtrack is so compromised that it's a major deterrent, and the only way to properly play it is to do it on old hardware or via emulation.
Right. Or using those mods.
So the movie though, what sank it for you?
What kind of sank it for me was the other movies, while sort of being adaptations, felt like they kind of stood on their own grounds. This one, more than any other film, felt like it had the prerequisite of you have to appreciate the game going into it for it to make sense.
Okay, I can see that. I really appreciate the games, though, so man, that worked for me.
Yeah, no, I can see that, but I think this might be a blasphemous take, but this movie had way too much Jim Carrey in it.
Wow,
way too much.
Way too.
You know, he's beloved and was box office gold for many years, but I could see him like really turning off a substantial minority of the population.
Yeah, I can also see that point of view, though I disagree it. I will defend with my right. No. How does that phrase go? You will defend with your life your right to hear me say it.
That's it. Nailed it.
The thing is that Jim Carrey is maybe it's maybe an acquired taste that we generationally have that perhaps not everybody even within that generation shares it, and maybe everybody's got different opinions. Great point. For more great points, continue listening to the show.
Right.
So Carrey as Robotnik himself, Eggman, mostly fine. It was the kind of his second character, Gerald. Yeah,
Gerald.
That kind of did me in for it. I did not.
Too broad?
We had very little to work with on that character based on the games in the past, so this is just kind of Carrey doing his own thing, it kind of felt like to me. And it did not work. We had these weird continued character beats that I think I counted 4 times that the entire relationship between him and Shadow was him turning to Shadow and being like, "Great work, Shadow!" And I was just like, yeah.
That's fair.
He's complimenting his friend, protege, child. I guess it's not a child in the movie.
I guess their relationship is not entirely clear.
As useful context, though, like, what do you think about the liar of it all, the me, myself, and Irene? Like, did those turn you off too? Is it just an anti-Jim Carrey thing?
No, I like some of that old zaniness with Carrey. I just don't think it fit quite right here. Some of the zingers did work. I've seen people seem to be latching on to the one where they're all smashed in the gravity thing. It's like, oh my god, I can't believe this happened. I know, a woman in the military. Like that worked for me. But like the dance sequence was a little too much. The like fourth wall breaking was a little too much for me.
Yeah.
It didn't ever quite come together for me. And it did also bug me that Sonic's entire arc, like I'm real angry about Tom, is resolved in one shot. There's not really any development there. He's just like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't be a bad person. That's it. Like, and this is why I like Knuckles better than 3, because Knuckles has an entire dramatic, well thought out character arc in it. It just happens to revolve around Wade and a bowling tournament.
True. Yeah, that's accurate. What you're saying is true. I guess I have a question for you, which is, where do you get off? And how dare you? But actually, my real question is, well, how do you feel about Sonic Adventure 2? And do you have what's your connection to that game and the story of Shadow and Gerald and Maria going into it?
Obviously, I've played the game plenty of times before. And as a kid, I remember thinking like, this is the pinnacle of Sonic.
Yeah.
Everything that's happening is so cool. I just wish the dark storyline wasn't as hard because I was a little kid who couldn't play video games yet. And then once I finally got through it, I was like, wow, that was so cool. They both went super and fought in space, and the soundtrack rules. And then when I revisited as an adult, I'm like, this is incoherent babble that has aged horribly.
Perfectly.
Well, in many ways, it hasn't aged at all. It's the same as it always was. We've aged around it.
I don't know. Have we?
No, just when they're on the planet, when they're in the space colony, it really does make no sense in the game.
Yeah. going back and forth just to get on, what is it, Skyrail? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and so on. But that is an interesting way to look at it. And I would say, you know, that's a very fair and valid point about I have not made a movie, so I don't know. But it seems to me, from having not just talking to the writers of this one, but just thinking about it, hearing things in general, this is a general observation. It seems like when movies are being cut together, and Jack, you're a Hollywood producer, you would know more, so you can comment on this. But it seems like when things are being cut together, the story cohesion and the themes are sometimes the first things to get cut, because it's more so about the moments and the scenes unto themselves playing for the audience, because the audience can kind of like put a lot of the things together. But then when you go home or on like the drive home, you're like, yeah, wait a minute, this didn't add up, and this didn't really make sense, and this didn't land. So I guess I'm wondering, do you think that observation is true? But also, were you not feeling it even in like the moment, or was it more of like on the drive home of like, yeah, wait a minute, fuck this movie?
I walked out of the theater being like, that was a movie that existed.
Okay. Yeah.
In this case, I didn't have that hype as I was walking out of like, wow, that was so cool. That was amazing. To be fair, the people I was with are self-professed Sonic heads, and they didn't understand the post-credits spoilers, I guess. Amy and
What?
Metal Sonic.
Self-professed Sonic heads who didn't know Amy and Metal.
That doesn't make any sense.
I
Clearly,
gotta
they're
question their
lying.
credentials.
I've only seen the first two movies.
Right.
They're
What
real
kind of
big fans of that.
We need to get
Yeah.
these Sonic heads on here and start quizzing them on the intricate details. See if they have any idea who Short Fuse the Cybernick is.
Name your top 5 Fleetway characters. We're not gatekeeping or anything. We're not trying to. But that's a curious thing to be like, oh, I love Sonic. I love Red Sonic and Pink Sonic and Metal Sonic. Hey, one of those is true.
Going to the original question on that, I do think that element of just trying to hit the intended emotion of that specific scene could have been something that happened with this movie, where some of that overall cohesion was lost in the name of, let's hit the moment we need to hit with this scene, move on, and try and wash that, hey, this doesn't make sense away with a fun game reference for the people who have played it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was
There's
great.
all
Look,
sorts of
it's all right.
opinions.
No,
Yeah.
the movie was great. I'm sorry you're wrong.
We're cool kids who hate Sonic.
Yeah.
We hate Sonic too, or at least, you know, some of us.
Some
Some
of us
really
hate
love
Sonic.
us.
Some of us
Yeah.
hate Sonic 2. Some of us hate Sonic 3.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm sorry that it didn't work for you, but I do appreciate that you have such a interesting ranking of it, and you know, it's not crazy. I think maybe I guess you are saying the movie's bad. I was going to say that you're not saying the movie's bad, but you are kind of saying that.
I would still say, for like historically what video game adaptations have been, if you solely put it on that, like the Paul Anderson Resident Evil movie
Yeah.
scale, it's a good movie in that regard, but the bar is underground in that case. So
Okay. All
we're
right.
still looking at a movie that I would give like a 6 on a good day to.
Out of 7.
Yes, out of 7.
I don't
Nailed
know
it.
how many
Perfect.
chaos
Oh
points.
yeah, we got to see your letterboxed. I think is what the chat's requesting, your letterboxed. That's okay.
What's
We
your-
don't have to agree on everything. We're going to talk about commonalities that we do have, like Shenmue.
Yeah.
But
True.
we're going to check the news. We're going to talk Sega, and then we're going to get into Shenmue.
Right.
Did we cover? Is there any news that we missed? I think there's one big story, right, David?
Right, yeah. There's this one story that dives into the ancient history of Sonic T Hedgehog regarding. Okay, so there's a user on Twitter. His name goes by Alex Hedgefox, and he uncovered a I guess it's a legal document. It was a draft of a suit that was to be filed, but was never filed in the courts, which I guess is why there's no record of it existing, regarding a conflict between Sega and Deke. I guess Sega wanted to sue Deke for a breach of contract. Whoa. Now, I know a lot of people are like, oh, look, this proves that Sega owns the Freedom Fighters and all the elements that are in the Deke shows, which I don't think anyone has really questioned. The only people who question it are confused about Ken Penders, which is a completely separate issue. I know it's easy to get the two conflated because the Archie comic is in many ways like the ZAM show, but they are very distinct entities. But what this document is about is at the beginning of 1994, Deke was selling animation cells of the Saturday morning Sonic show, and Sega found out and was like, "Oh, you can't do that because you're selling our property without our authorization, and we're not getting any money from it." So it was a breach of contract. Okay, there's a lot of legalese in it, right? Look at this legalese draft. But I guess what this document reveals is that Deke failed to act in Sega's best interest, breached his contract, and that Sega was terminating said contract and suing the company for damages. This contract termination included ending production of, quote, the network series, that is from Sonic Stadium. In the document, it says, under its second and third causes of action for a preliminary and permanent injunction enjoining Deke and all those acting in concert or participation with Deke from A, taking any action to produce any additional episodes of the network series. That is the big taking away point of this document, that Sega said to Deke, you can't make any more Sonic because you've breached our agreements. There were apparently two agreements, one in October 29th, 1991, and then a later revision in September of 92, which we don't have, unfortunately. But, right, it's basically saying that because Deke started doing this, Sega went, we're done, we're suing you, you can't make more Sonic. Clearly, they never got to the point where they were being sued, because in the cover letter that was faxed to Tom Kalinske and sent to many people, including, I guess, I don't know how you say this name, is Michelini? It's Michealene. They're the ones who provided this draft of an unfiled suit, where basically this person was in discussions with Deke up to the previous week, September 25th, 1995. I might have said 94. I meant 95. Look, either way, it's saying this is one of the reasons the show got canceled. This was rumored way back in the day. There is a Usenet post from February 27th, 1995, that says, oh, Sonic isn't on the schedule for next fall, fall 95. And someone named Paulo wrote, several dealers have told me that Sega was not at all happy with Deke's offering of Sonic cells for sale and hit them with a full cease and desist order. Wow. Stating they never authorized Deke to do any such thing with images of their copyrighted characters. That was from February 27th, 1995. This draft of the filing that we see is from September of 95. Clearly, things were resolved to allow for the production of Christmas Blast and then subsequently Underground. But this looks to be one of the big reasons Season 3 never happened. This had been debunked by Ben Hurst years ago, who said, oh, it has nothing to do with these cells. Sega was fine with it. It's because of ratings and because of a shift in management, because after the final episode of SatAM and before the fall schedule, it was announced that ABC and Disney were merging. Even though that merger didn't come through officially until 96, there was still it takes a long time. It was clear that the stuff was happening. But Ben Hurst was not in the, he's not an executive. He might not have been privy to this because it certainly is true. We have the legal documentation, even if it was never filed, that confirms Sega said stop. So that probably in combination with the uncertainties of what was happening in ABC, I don't think it was one reason, but I think it was all the reasons, including Sega saying no. And by the time everything was resolved, the boat had sailed, SatAM was dead in the water, and people fell in love with Manic and Sonia instead, right?
Were the ratings for the Saturday morning show bad? Because in my household, it was the hardest set of decisions I've ever had to make is Power Rangers Live or Sonic Live. And, fortunately, I knew how to program the VCR. And I could get them both. But, every weekend it was the same dilemma.
It was that 94-95 season, like Power Rangers was. I don't think we have any official numbers. Nielsen ratings for Saturday morning shows are a little harder to find than primetime shows from the 90s, unfortunately. I've tried to find them. I know Sonic did relatively well in 93, enough where ABC started airing Sonic twice a day in Saturday mornings before season 2 started. So they were very into Sonic. But Sonic and Power Rangers did compete during a fair amount of season 2's existence. And Power Rangers was a behemoth. Like, there was no stopping. Look, Tommy Oliver controlled many people. He was.
Here's my question on that, though.
Yeah.
Is they didn't cancel all of television because Power Rangers was so popular.
No.
Like, something else had to replace Sonic. And maybe it was better counter programming, but couldn't Sonic just move in the schedule? Or I think you kind of nailed it. It was probably a number of factors colliding. I mean, it's definitely interesting that it came to legal documents with the animation cells.
How much were they getting for cells? They can't be that much, right?
Especially back then? No, it couldn't have been a ton. But I guess it was enough for Sega to be like, hey, and I guess it's because Deke was also kind of not telling them they were doing it, wasn't being clear.
Do we know anybody who got them?
Ben Hurst bought a few. There's posts on Usenet where he's like, I bought some. And I think he eventually sold them on eBay. If he had waited a while, perhaps a few years after he died, he could have sold them for more.
Because the Adventures of Cells, those have been on sale and widely available, but I don't think I've ever seen Saturday morning ones.
Sega is informed and believes, and upon such information and belief alleges that at the time it was acting as Sega's agent and fiduciary, and that's a lot of legalese. But basically, look, they were like, you screwed us, or you're trying to screw us. We don't have the original agreements. That is one thing I wish had been shared, but maybe the person who felt comfortable sharing this document didn't feel comfortable sharing the others because maybe there's more to it. This was technically never filed. This never happened. But Sega did say, Sega must have sent the cease and desist order, and clearly word got around if people on Usenet in February of 95 were talking about it.
Yeah. It's interesting. What does this mean for you, dear listener? Stay tuned.
Right.
News at 11.
Right.
What?
But those weren't the only shows that got canceled. Also, Crow and Tales from the Crypt Keeper were canceled on ABC that same year. Remember Tales from the Crypt Keeper? They
weren't all selling animation cells.
No, probably no one cared about Crow. Do you remember Crow?
I certainly don't.
Exactly.
Is it related to the Crow comic book series
or movie?
Crow is about a woolly mammoth who gets thawed out in modern day and tells a bunch of kids his adventures with his friend named Crow, who was a child, Cro-Magnon era child, and they learn lessons, and I believe that helped satisfy the education quotient of the day. Right, Saturday morning blocks were required to have a certain amount of educational programming, and Crow helped fulfill that.
Right.
That's also why you have the G.I. Joe things, right? And even the Power Rangers, where they would go, "Hey, don't bully."
Nancy Reagan.
Does
right?
Sonic Says count?
I think so.
Sonic Says does count. Yes, that is why it's there, and that's why I believe those segments don't air in the UK because it didn't matter. They didn't have that, and they're like, "What the fuck is this extra bit? Don't care. Not airing." But yeah.
Still smoking cigarettes
because he's got a 6-pack a day addiction. That's it. And then there was also a video I didn't watch. Grant, what was that?
Yeah, the animator for the Sonic 3 movie credits posted a video that was pretty enlightening about how their work was noticed by the producers of the movie, how they reached out. One of the things I really appreciate about the video is how they pointed out how nerve-wracking the process is when you're freelance and getting a job, between getting that initial email and then like closing the deal of like, is this going to happen? Is this not going to happen? And then they confirmed that the Sonic the Fighters models were indeed the basis. They did fight for the Dreamcast models. They knew it was obviously anachronistic and wrong. How many times do I say anachronistic on this show? You got to keep counting at home.
We're going to get into anachronisms soon.
And it's a good video. Let's get into anachronisms, because I feel like there's a Sonic mailbag, but we'll wait for later with that, because can we turn the ship over to the Sega portion of the show, the Rings of Saturn, a bit of Sega, where we talk about the world of outside of Sonic, because Sonic lives inside the Dreamcast, but he shares that space. It's a commune.
Just like in that commercial where all of the basketball players and Ready to Rumble guys are in there. I remember
exactly.
that one.
It's Sonic's DJing.
Right. They split the rent evenly.
That's right. There's no landlords. I don't know. Maybe there is a landlord in the Dreamcast. Our greatest fantasy still involves a landlord. How sad.
So I took a look at a member of the Hang On series that did not involve Yu Suzuki, even though the first one did. Hang On GP for the Saturn. That's a bike game you can play on your Saturn. It's not bad. And I noticed the magazines, they have 2 cheat codes in them. And what game has 2 cheat codes but not more? I say none of them. Whenever I see 2 cheat codes, I know they forgot to print some of them in the magazine. And so I went and I looked, and sure enough, there's some extra cheat codes in there. You can mirror the tracks. You can unlock all the bikes. You can unlock the special machine, the best bike in the game. And, these secrets have stayed hidden for almost 30 years. This game was called Hang On 95 in Japan.
Wow.
30th anniversary coming up.
So I could use these codes on.
You could go and play on your Saturn and cheat at Super Hang On or at Hang On GP.
Amazing. That's what I would like to do. I want to bring up a Saturn game to you that I've been playing and just see if you know anything off the top of your head about it. And if not, just a recommendation to the listeners and to everybody, because this is a fairly obscure one, or maybe you've heard of it, but Bulk Slash. Do you know Bulk Slash?
Bulk Slash. Oh, yeah. I know Bulk Slash. Our friend Michael G. Silver, big Bulk Slash fan, as I recall. Well received Saturn game.
Yes.
Would certainly go on a Saturn Mini.
Yes, but I don't think it had a English translation. It was Japan only release.
I think there is a fan translation, which may be difficult to play on the Saru. Yeah.
It is not. I have our friend and previous guest, Matt Brawley, has helped hook me up with he did the digging around in the forums and found that this exact fan translation and compiled the bins and the queues, put it in the SD card, put it in the Saru, voila. And what a game. And the reason I wanted to bring it up is because it reminds me so much of Burning Rangers, but because it's using sprites, it looks a lot smoother. I think that Burning Rangers, I like the aesthetic and it's very cool, but it's a little chunky, hard on the eyes with the 32-bit 3D graphics.
It makes better use of the Saturn sprite pushing capabilities for sure.
Yeah. And although you're not going around putting out fires and rescuing people, you are going around rescuing people and fighting mechs, and it's kind of a similar movement. You're on a much bigger scale. And wow, what a cool game. That was my point on.
Part of the team that did that localization are in the Sega Saturn Shiro universe, and Rings of Saturn fans may know that those articles that I write get syndicated there. So they're in the family of Sonic Weekly through me.
We love Sonic. We love Sega. And speaking of the family, let's hear from our friend Barry at SegaBits.
Hey listeners of Sonic Weekly, this is Barry from SegaBits to tell you about a few of our shows. Sega Talk is a bi-weekly show in which my co-host George and I look back on the many games in Sega history. The Swing and Report Show Live is a Sega interview show and the longest-running Sega podcast of all time. Listen to interviews with special guests like former Sega CEO Tom Kalinske, Sonic voice actor Roger Craig Smith, and many more. Watch or listen at youtube.com/SegaBits or search SegaBits on your podcatcher of choice.
We're talking Shenmue, baby. Yu Suzuki's grand magnum opus in, was it 2000 or 2001 when it released on the Dreamcast?
Technically, it was 1999 by like a day.
Oh.
1999 Japan, and then the sequel came out in 2001, right?
Yes.
Right. As the Dreamcast was laying
In
there
the dying
dying.
days of the Dreamcast.
Yeah.
Yes.
Didn't even get American release.
Correct. And for that reason, I mean, now it's available as the Shenmue 1 and 2 collection, and Shenmue 3 is available on PlayStation. Is that right, Jack?
It's on PlayStation and computer.
Right.
And computer.
I played it on Steam, yeah.
Yeah. You can play it on Steam right now.
And it is a significantly better product on PC.
So I've only played the first one on Dreamcast. I have been playing the Yakuza games, the Like a Dragon series, and one of the big appeals of that, the two games that I've been, one that I completed and the other that I've begun playing, is like how clear it is that that it's coming from the Shenmue DNA in some level. There must be some team. Obviously, Yu Suzuki's not involved, but I think RGG Studio.
Well,
is that true, or am I mean, everybody notices it?
There is connective tissue there in a very specific way. I'd like you to try and guess.
The game designer, the planner, the director.
Monkey Ball.
What did Suzuki do? I don't know.
Somebody
Who is not Yu Suzuki, who is in a high-level creative position.
Wow, it's like
RGG.
That's the really obvious answer or something. So back when Shenmue was being made, Yu Suzuki has no real experience making bigger console games. Everything he's done at this point is arcade. So he just keeps adding on to the game and not cutting anything. And Sega at this point is like, you need to finish this game. So I can't remember the guy's name for the life of me right now, but the guy who directs all the Yakuza games was brought in to take over and get this game across the finish line. And Sega was like, okay, you need to finish this. He spends a month looking at what the hell he has and goes, okay, I need 6 months to get something out the door. And that's your connective tissue.
It's
Yutaka Ito, right?
Yeah.
Recently appeared on Rings of Saturn when he revealed the game-breaking bug in his Fighters Megamix. Little secret.
Wow. So he broke one game and fixed another.
You fixed another. Yeah, so I don't know. Let's say you're a listener. You were too young to anticipate Shenmue, but this was advertised as and then delivered on being a genre-defining, path-breaking, very innovative game that cost more than any other game had ever cost to develop. And, you know, it's advertised as a story of revenge and supernatural mysticism and Eastern elements. But no, it's a game about social pressure. It's a game about how you've got a goal and, you know, okay, your friend is going to feel disappointed if you pursue your goal at the exclusion of practicing your martial arts with your friend. And, man, okay, you got to earn money. So you got to do your job, but then your mother figure is going to be disappointed that you're not coming home at the right kind of time. And, you know, she's still going to leave the money for you on the dresser, but you're going to feel guilty about taking it. And you're going to feel guilty about staying out late. It is the most accurate simulation of obligation and like implicit social pressure ever been put to a game.
Wow.
And I say that as somebody who stopped playing games in 2001. So if that happened better after that, don't tell me.
Along those lines, the idea of like an open world game didn't really exist. You had things like Daggerfall, which is just so unbelievably big, nobody can comprehend it. But yeah, what we know and think of today when we hear the term open world game didn't exist in 1998, 1999. So Sega had to come up with their own term for it. What was their term?
It was free.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm. And what did free stand for?
free Reactive Eyes Entertainment, of course.
Full Reactive Eyes
Okay.
Entertainment.
I thought it was a recursive acronym.
Yeah,
but it's an entertainment for your full eye.
The full eye. Oh, go on.
Sorry. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that it was the most expensive game, because that was one of the biggest selling points, was that it was just like, this game costs to you, the consumer, the same amount as any other game. But to make it, we spent incalculable fortunes to bring you the lifelike detail of every NPC is going to have their own routine. And again, this was before GTA 3.
correct.
Yes.
GTA 1 existed, right?
And 2.
I
think.
What about the
those
London?
NPCs didn't do anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. This was the wild west, and it was. I mean, it was a big deal even before it was announced properly. Because weren't there? I mean, the whole Project Berkeley thing was rumored, and I think even some, like, they showed some tech demos for the Dreamcast, like some tech images, and they were like, oh. I forget exactly which ones, but I think some of them were from that Project Berkeley era, where it was like, look at this thing. Isn't this thing neat?
I'd be curious what the Usenets have to say. Maybe you can do that dive for us sometime.
Oh yeah, I should have done that. I didn't think about doing that right now or earlier.
There were rumors of the Virtua Fighter RPG. So you've got Akira, the character in Virtua Fighter. What if he had a story? And okay, I'm down. I like Virtua Fighter.
Yeah.
And that pitch evolved into Shenmue, the semi-mystical revenge plot. Didn't retain the Virtua Fighter storyline so much, but does sort of have a simplified Virtua Fighter fighting engine in it, at least in the first 2 games.
Yeah, at least in the first 2 games.
Right. Yeah, there was some punching.
My understanding is this all started out of basically everybody dunking on Yu Suzuki for the environments in Virtua Fighter 1 looking like crap. So he went to China to research environments for Virtua Fighter 2, and he came back being like, what if there was a story here?
Huh.
And that's the, I guess, the inkling of the idea.
He had such a grand vision for it, though. It was visuals, it was story, it was new gameplay styles, and like the visual component, I think he was very proud of. So there's a disc called What's Shenmue that was like part of the tech demo for the Dreamcast, where they have just like close-ups of the characters talking, and they're quote unquote high polygon models, which are like very high polygon for the time.
They look way better than anything in the game.
They look way better than anything in the game, but they still look pretty good today. Like, we're past the point where polygon count matters by many years, but I think those graphics for those close-up talking heads held up for quite some time.
It was a cool head.
These talking heads are sitting there explaining like game mechanics to you without context, and you have a little bit of ability to move the camera to prove it's real-time rendering. But if you like no clip it and pull the camera out, they're only rendered up to about like their chest.
Shenmue is a huge sprawling game, and it's 3 games that are huge and sprawling. So there's the context of the game's creation. Well, am I the only one that hasn't played the sequels? David, did you play the sequels as well?
No, I've only played the first one. I am still...
Oh, wow.
I know. Well, because I wanted to be a Dreamcast purist at the time. And I was like, oh, if I'm going to play Shenmue 2, I need to import it from Europe so I can understand it in English. But then I have to do a thing with the VMU. Because even when the Dreamcast was dying and Shenmue 2 was in the pipeline, various news outlets, I remember, were talking to all of the various studios at Sega, talking to Sonic Team, like, whoa, where are you going to do your next game? And they're like, we're focusing our efforts on the GameCube right now. And then it's like, oh, Jet Set Radio Future is coming to the Xbox. So they're like, Yu Suzuki, where's Shenmue going? And he's like, Dreamcast. That's where I want it. I want to keep on making it on the Dreamcast. And, props to him, but also clearly Sega was like, it's dead. We're not going to drop another $70 million so you can make Shenmue 3. on the Dreamcast.
I actually did import the Shenmue 2 for the Dreamcast and did, in an early Rings of Saturn hacking
right.
incident, edit the VMU and import the save. So yeah, I experienced it in the moment.
You did. You were right there on the front lines. So because of that, and I just never
Jack,
got around.
What's your ranking of the Shenmue games? Is it 1, 2, 3 or 2, 1, 3? Yeah.
Me, it's 2, 1, 3.
Ooh.
Okay.
I think that's a pretty common rating in this case.
So I replayed them, I think, 2 summers ago on the PC, and I think I would go 1, 2, 3, and I think part of that though is the PC version gives you some of the quality of life things from in the first game from the second game, so like backports them so you can save anywhere, and there's a few other little things like that. But I think just the scope of the first one is smaller than the second one, but it feels like more of a place you would go and remember, whereas like those streets in Aberdeen and the second location that you're in Shenmue 2, in Kowloon, I have more difficulty like placing myself there.
I think in the second game it was intended to be more overwhelming because this is a new place without anything.
Yeah,
what I will give you is the first game feels more lived in because everybody is pre-programmed and you can find the same people over and over again, whereas because Shenmue 2 is bigger, they cheated and just spawn in random unimportant NPCs who are all conveniently walking to the same place you are. At any NPC you ask to be like, hey, where's the Yantin apartments? They will take you where you want to go. So you always ask a small child because they run. Everybody else walks.
Wow.
Don't think about the context of that at all.
No. Right. Here's a stranger from Japan being like, hello, small child. Can you... It's a good thing he wasn't asking about where, the men in black suits
where to find sailors.
Or where to find sailors, yeah. But he totally could have asked about the 3 blades. I bet everyone would have known.
And there's parts of the game where you're sitting there asking about the 3 blades. You could definitely walk up to a child and be like, do you know where I can find a martial artist?
Yeah.
I think that's another thing I liked a little bit more about the first game is that it feels a little less ridiculous in the first game. So like you've got to, like, one of your main subquests in the second game is learning the 4 wood, so you can tell the 4 wood as a password to learn the piece of information that lets you advance. And I don't know, like, do they not have libraries in Hong Kong?
They treat it as this like tightly kept secret thing that I'm sure is just written in a book somewhere.
I was thinking, yeah. And like the mini games are a little bit sillier. Like there's one where you've got to like move stacks of books and not drop them because that will take up too much time, and you're kind of doing that as a hazing ritual as part of your martial arts training.
Yeah, it's supposed to help you calm your mind or whatever, because the master's like, yep, this guy just wants to commit murder, so I'm gonna have him move books.
Oh yeah.
I guess one cool thing in the moment though is that character, that master Shu Ying, is advertised heavily in the first game, is in like cutscenes and previews for the first game, and then doesn't even show up at all until the second game.
Right. Because it feels like when Yu Suzuki sat down and said, okay, we're going to make Shenmue, he already had it, like, we're just going to tease the entire saga. How many games is it? I don't know. Maybe he wanted it to be like 11, 14 games, right? Because if
a bunch of games, a comic book.
Right. If the first game is chapter 1, that to me says Yu Suzuki might have wanted the sequel to just be chapter 2, and then was forced to make it chapters 3, 4, and 5, and then 2's in a comic. Although it would have been wild if Shenmue 2 just took place on a boat the whole time and was 3 discs long. And
just 4 discs of the like 2 days on the boat.
The 2 days on the boat. I would have loved that.
One fight happens. And it ends up being an utterly pointless fight because the guy's back in 3 and he's useless and gets beat in a cutscene.
How many chapters were intended for the complete Shenmue saga? Was it 17? I feel like
I've
have
heard
that number
16.
in my head.
Right.
Okay.
I feel like it got downgraded, and then the third one came out, and now it's completely unclear what the.
I believe it was originally 16, and then later they were like, okay, now it's just 11. But they never clarified what chapters are covered in Shenmue 3, I believe.
I think it's just one. I honestly think it's just one
If
chapter.
that, right?
Right, because
I could argue it's a continuation of chapter 4 because chapter 4 is like a little epilogue at the end of 2 that doesn't really go anywhere. It starts to introduce the supernatural elements of the game, and then
this is one of my issues
with.
with. 2 ends in this great moment where you basically discover magic is real, and then that would kind of rock my world. And then they're like, "All right, you want to go home and like eat some food?" Like, okay, yeah, sounds good.
Oh no, my dad's missing. Let's put our entire focus of the next like 3 months of our lives on that, and not.
No,
But like leisurely, let's
Yeah.
still like go home and sit by the fire and talk and play games for a little bit. Like, don't strain yourself looking for your dad.
What if the Yakuza series, which has changed its name in the US to Like a Dragon, which it always was, that's what RGG is, Ryo comes in, turns out it's been a Shenmue series this whole time. Those are all the chapters. It's almost there. Because how many Yakuza games are there? There's like 13, right? Like there's 8 plus some spin-offs. Something like that.
I would love like a Shenmue side story where, I don't know, you follow the biker gang or something from the first game for a while.
Right, because when does Yaku Like a Dragon 0 take place?
It usually takes place in the present day, but it
Right,
has
that
done
first-
flashbacks
Right.
to the Yakuza Zeros in the 80s.
in the 80s, right? Which is
Yeah.
because I forget exactly what year Yakuza 0 takes place. But if Shenmue 1 is what, that's 86, right?
Late 86.
1988.
80, is it?
So
Yeah.
86 and
1988
87.
is Yakuza 0. So an old man Ryu
Yeah.
can
At
show
the
up.
at the tender age of 20 in
So-
1988.
But grizzled through his
Right.
journeys.
Right. That could, right. You could then just fast forward. So right, the takes place between Yakuza 0 and 1, and it's about Ryu.
Real.
It's about him. It's about and then they can incorporate the Shenmue Online stuff that they never made. It'll be fine.
That whole thing's a mess.
Right.
Shenmue Online.
Shenmue Online, right?
I like the original Shenmue Online with my Shenmue passport,
Ooh,
Yeah, disc 4.
with its strange integration with F355 Racing, the arcade game.
right.
Yeah.
How many Shenmue spin-offs were announced that never came out? Was it just the
That
one?
never came. That never
I think
came
it was just
out.
the one.
I think
The
it's just
anime
the one.
came out.
The anime came out.
Mhm.
Although the second season never happened, so we still didn't get any new story elements out of that. The anime only covers Shenmue 1 and 2
Right.
with some like scenes that sort of show some things you never saw that make things make a little more sense. Although, because it got canceled, the English dub has just vanished from the material sphere, so you can only watch it subtitled.
Huh.
Why was it canceled?
And presumably low ratings. But...
Oh, that's rude.
Or maybe they were selling animation cells. I'm not sure.
that could.
I was going to say, so when I replayed the first 2 games and then the third, I played them all in a row. The first game has just like a bunch of really cool moments that I liked in 1999, 2000, but still think are awesome now. So it's the final motorcycle sequence where you have to go rescue Nozomi. You got to find your friend who you've been ignoring this whole game. That's the social pressure aspect of the game, but he's still your guy. He comes through for you, lets you use his motorcycle to pull off this awesome rescue. And then you have the 70-man battle. You got to fight 70 dudes.
Oh yeah.
And if you've made the right choices, you have help. What a climax of a game that is.
That's that, and the forklift and the cat in the beginning, and the toy machines. Those are the things that I really remember from Shenmue, which I have tried to replay, and the memes, I guess, like where can
Are you
I
looking
find
for
sailors?
Yeah.
Because I have tried to replay these games a few times. I tried to introduce some Dashland, and I fall off each time of just like it just gets to a point where it's like I don't have the game so well memorized that I can just kind of breeze through it. I'll get to a point where I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And then I just never play it again.
Well,
But I am very
you've got
curious
to be
about
a teen and have like loads and loads of time to just burn.
yes,
That's
Yeah.
it.
I was very immersed at the time in Shenmue 1 and for the longest, well, couple of years, I was like definitely like, oh, that is the best game of all time. There's no question.
That's the thing with Shenmue. Even once you know what you need to do, it's not nearly as rewarding an experience to just go from point A to point B to point C to point D to point E. It's a much more rewarding experience to go stop and talk to the jacket guy, to go play Hang On for 3 hours at the arcade and wonder about your life decisions, and then go to the parking lot, which has no cars in it, and practice your karates. And he can look around to no one and be like, it's time to get sweaty.
No one ever parks there. I guess, is he the only patron? Like, really? At the end of the day,
you see the biker gang members in there playing like the 2-player Pac-Man machine sometimes.
I want to know what their business model is. Maybe that's what Shenmue should have been about, where you go in there and you find out like you see their bookkeeping, you realize it's
you do stumble into some clearly illegal operations throughout the game. Like there's like a business that's a mob front. There's like some gambling parlors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems like the Shenmue view of society is that if you look even a little bit, you'll find corruption and crime everywhere.
Yeah, why not? It's the 80s.
Yeah.
That's just how it was.
Were there any, I think you nailed it on the moments that really stick out. Are there any side characters or throughout in any of the games that deserve any honorifics one way or the other?
I'm going to say in the first game, there's a bunch of like really memorable characters like Tom and Fukusan and Ine-san.
Oh yeah.
And I think in the second game, it's like a little bit harder to keep track. There's Ren. Kids can't get enough Ren. But to me, it's less of a. I feel like I could hang out with these guys than the first game.
It's a little bit. It feels like he's falling deeper and deeper into the underworld. These games, it's
right.
like the first game is just like
family.
The first game is just like, hey, I found the local biker gang, and then I went and beat up literally all of them when they kidnapped my not girlfriend, who is also like flying back to Canada the next day.
Oh yeah.
Forgot about that detail.
And yeah, the second game, he's falling deeper into the underworld. He's immediately trying to get in with gangs that are subordinates to other gangs that are subordinates to other gangs, and you spend the game just kind of fighting your way up to the top, literally culminating in climbing up an entire dilapidated skyscraper in the middle of Kowloon walled city to go fight the guy who's like one step below the Chiyo Men, who is your final villain of the series.
Do you guys know about the Kowloon walled city?
Place is wild.
This is this like anarchic place in Hong Kong where it just piled stuff on top of things to make buildings, and it just like lasted for a couple of decades, just completely lawless. Nobody would go in there, no government. Eventually they're just like, all right, we're shutting this down. And so Shenmue takes place in the time between they said, we're going to demolish this entire thing, like flatten it, and when everybody got out. And like that was a real thing that happened. And like within a year of the game's timeline, it's just like a park after that.
Whoa.
Wow.
Well,
wow.
The whole city is gone.
I guess it's a good thing he visited it when he did in the game.
As memory serves, and I could be wrong on this because I don't have it in front of me, but this place was like half a square mile big or something like that and had like 3 million people living in it.
Wow.
Right. Yeah, it's just the most densely packed place ever and completely lawless. And that's kind of like the thing that's represented in the game. And you have to like make your way up this building, but it's extremely dangerous. Like there's no building codes or standards, and it's all about to get demolished anyway. And so it's just like a really frustrating part where you have to cross over this high building with floor that's like broken, and if you fall, you got to go all the way to the bottom. So you like have this terrible death animation. And it's all QTEs that you got to do to make it across. It's terrible. I almost quit.
You guys are really selling me on it. This sounds pretty good. I mean, that sounds exciting. It also sounds like it could actually tie into Yakuza Like a Dragon RGG, because
right,
if he's falling deeper and deeper into the underworld, maybe he makes it. Yeah, I mean, like you said, there could be some connective characters there.
It is a good point. It's like the beginning one. Is he really going to pursue this revenge plot? And then the second one is like, no, I'm really pursuing this, and there's no pulling me back.
He's actively ignoring everybody telling him to stop. And the second
right, and then the third one, magic is real.
The magic is real part is so frustrating in the third one because they again refuse to show any of it. You get this sequence where you beat the boss of the first area, and you're trying to interrogate him, and he won't do or say or anything. And then Shenhua, who has done nothing over the course of the game after being hyped up now for 20 plus years, goes, hey, leave me alone with him for a minute. Everybody walks out, and then her eyes turn black, and you cut outside, and the guy's just like screaming in horror. And that's it. And then he's willing to talk.
Huh. Well, maybe you'll see what she did in Shenmue 4. You can really see it. Or Shenmue 5.
Predictions on a Shenmue 4. Will it happen? What will happen?
I don't think Shenmue 4 is going to happen. My hope and dream is that the current game that YSNet is doing is being funded by Netflix, I believe. Mm-hmm. This is recently announced Steel Paws, for those of you who watch the Game Awards. I'm hoping that game does well for Netflix, and Netflix goes, fuck it, Shenmue 4, Netflix exclusive.
A Netflix exclusive.
That's not crazy because it is an established brand, and that is the most valuable thing to so many of these companies. It's just like, hey, a dozen people are very passionate about it. That's enough. And in Shenmue's case, it's several dozen.
Yeah.
There's dozens of us.
Yeah.
Right.
Dozens.
How many people? Let's go to Shenmue Dojo right now. Let's see. Does it tell you how many people?
We come in peace, Shenmue Dojo.
Yeah.
Well, they've got a good community. They've got an active Discord. People talking about Shenmue.
Are you in there?
I was in there for.
Didn't they tell you off for talking?
No, they're very supportive. They're just like, we know.
Right. There are on their forums. It looks like there's 39 people looking, 2 members, 37 guests. How many of those are just Google bots crawling? Google crawlers.
36 of them.
36. Yeah. Oh, right. I'm number 37. But
everyone on the internet is a bot.
At this point.
I just want to mention, so if you haven't played Shenmue 3, it does retain much of the Shenmue 1 and 2 DNA, but it adds some stuff. Namely, Ryo gets hungry.
Oh.
And you have to keep supplying Ryo with food, or he'll become sluggish, and
his health is constantly draining throughout the day. And the lower his health gets, the faster it drains.
Seems like a really bad idea.
Also in Red Dead Redemption 2, and everybody loved it. Shenmue 3 was there first, or maybe second.
No, Red Dead 2 was there first in this case, but I think Red Dead 2 did it in a way that it was actually fun. In Shenmue, you have to go work the job or play Lucky Hit and save scum to get a bunch of tokens so that you can trade that for things that are valuable, so you can have a bunch of money, so you can buy very specific garlic powder, which is, for whatever reason, the thing that gives Ryo the most health is to just open this bag of garlic powder and just eat it like a cinnamon challenge.
Wow. So I guess at the end of Shenmue 4, he'll just die from malnutrition. and then the 5th one, somebody has to revenge his death. And maybe that's when we finally get Akira.
Well, there is kind of like a cycle of violence. So you learn that why did Landy kill Ryo's father? Is because Ryo's father was maybe responsible for killing someone important to Lon D. So it's this has been going on longer than you think.
Oh god.
But the other thing Shenmue 3 did was it replaced the Virtua Fighter system for fighting. So when you get into a battle in the first two games, it really is it feels like Virtua Fighter. Number 3 replaces with something much worse, like it's not a good fighting game.
What is it?
I would just describe it as you hit a button and something cool happens was what they were trying to do.
Okay.
But in functionality, what you have is you have these scrolls, which are like, here's a special move. And we can just assign it to one of 4 buttons. And that's the only way the fighting system actually works on any functional level, is you pick the 4 moves you want to use and you map them to pre-built buttons. So you just sit there waiting for an opportunity to attack, and then you hit one button and watch Ryu do a big move.
Oh.
It's a huge downgrade. Really detracts from the experience.
Is it because they were worried, like, oh, they were able to get the Shenmue license from Sega, but like copying Virtua Fighter, would that have just been more money? Would Sega have been like, you can't do that? Or was it just Yu Suzuki thinking he could do something better somehow?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I hope there's an excuse, because it really is.
Right. But either way, it's like
less fun.
There's 100 different fighters, even if they couldn't one-to-one do the Virtua Fighter system.
Yeah, if ripping off Virtua Fighter was a crime, then there would be so many Tekken people in jail.
Right. Or they could have copied it off of, suddenly it's Street Fighter for some reason. Shenmue Online, there was a glowing ball. Oh, there goes. That's fine. Right. Wasn't there that screenshot from Shenmue Online before it was canceled where he's just like, look, I got a glowing ball. That could be a Hadouken he's throwing at someone. Maybe? No?
Maybe.
Who knows?
Maybe.
I don't. Or what if they just got rid of all the fighting in the game?
It wouldn't be the worst thing. Like you would miss it, and you do miss like the good fighting thing in Shenmue 3, but I did enjoy revisiting Ryo the character and like learning a little bit more about, okay, we spent the whole second game getting to where Shinhwa lives. All right, now we're really there. But the other big disappointment with it is something we've referred to on the show before, is that it does not move the plot along. So end of Shenmue 2, he has scored a blow against Lon D, and the dragon mirrors and the dragon mirror and the phoenix mirror are in possession. And then at the end of 3, it's the exact same finish. There's like nothing happened.
So something that I've been thinking about with 3 is, in its kind of quest to hit that nostalgia button, because everybody's been waiting for this for 20 years, it tries to replicate the first 2 games within each location, and in the process loses moving things along. You have the small quaint town, location 1, Bailu Village, which the way it's built doesn't make any sense compared to how it was shown leading up to it in Shenmue 2, that like it takes like a 4-day hike to get there. It's completely inaccessible, but they have a functional arcade.
You gotta do something when you're up there.
You go through this quaint, smaller town, you fight the small little gang that exists there, and that is the equivalent to Shenmue 1. You move to Naiwu, I believe it's called, the second city, or Niawu, sorry. The second city, which is a big, overwhelming city where there's a gang. In Shenmue 2, I believe they're called the Yellowheads.
Yellowhead, yeah.
Yellowhead gang. And in Shenmue 3, they are the Red Snakes. So it's not even that different a name. And you fight your way through them, and then you go to a third location where you get the epilogue where nothing actually happens.
And then how about there was the series, right? There was an anime series that was also not moving the plot along.
I think it just covered the events of the first game, basically.
It covers the first 2 games.
Okay. Does he? Oh, he gets all the way to Hong Kong.
The final shot is the magic is real in the cave.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
There was also Shenmue the movie, correct? Which is
a Shenmue, if you will.
You could go and see Shenmue the movie in. Okay, so let me explain what Shenmue the movie is first. Shenmue the movie was what came on the Xbox version of Shenmue 2 as oh, hey, you might not have played Shenmue 1. So here's a compilation of cutscenes and gameplay without UI to explain to you what the hell actually happened in Shenmue 1. They called it Shenmue the Movie. And in Japan, they showed this in theaters. In 2002 or whatever it was, you could go to the local cinema and watch Dreamcast cutscenes on a movie screen. It was
Hell yeah.
truly what a time to be alive.
Right. How much money did it make?
I can't imagine much.
I need a hardcore. I need a concrete number.
9.
Oh, thank you.
I wonder if it was even dubbed back into Japanese for the Japanese release, because it was using the English dub here in the States. Like, there was the last gasp release of Shenmue 1 in Japan called US Shenmue, which was just Shenmue 1 with the English dub on it, that sold as a Japanese disc, and it had it just says Shenmue, and there's a fun little US text with the American flag in it.
They really wanted to squeeze as much money out of as they could out of it.
They did like to do that, though, of like re-release the international version. Like Sonic Adventure got that, Shenmue got that, a few other games.
Yeah.
De La Jet Set Radio.
Yeah, exactly. Like they also had bug fixes too. So like the Japanese one is rushed, but then they take a while to localize it and fix some things.
I think it was marketed as you can use this game to help you learn English, which Shenmue is not the game to do that. With its notoriously bad dub and voice acting.
While we're on language there for a moment, another thing that stood out to me in the replay, and maybe this wasn't so bad if you didn't play them like back to back, but like a key point in the first game is that you have to go get these Chinese characters translated. You got to find a Chinese expert, and you got to walk around asking for hey, anybody speak Chinese around here? And then in the second game, he's in Hong Kong speaking Chinese, no problem. Everyone understands him, is not concerned about the Japanese guy. It's a big hole.
Well, maybe that's what happened in Chapter 2 when he was on that boat.
He learned
Chinese.
This is one thing the anime actually touches on.
Oh, do they? Oh.
Yeah, the anime, when he arrives in Hong Kong, he's visibly using a phrase book to try and talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
And each episode, as he's talking to people, even though we just hear it in Japanese or English, they'll remark like, hey, your Cantonese is getting better.
Okay.
So they do one of those things where it's just like the wink at the camera, like, yeah, they're all speaking Chinese, but we need you to understand this.
Well, Shenmue, unfinished, sprawling. So too is our discussion. Any last comments, questions, concerns, any parting shots on maybe hopes or predictions for what could a Shenmue 4 do? Complete everything.
No.
First game is 1 chapter. Second game is like maybe 2 chapters. Third game is no chapters. Fourth game is 20 chapters.
Now, as memory serves, they're left on the Great Wall of China is where the game ends.
At the end of 3, they're on the Great Wall of China. Well, so then game 4 is just them getting down.
What I would like is just like 40-page description of what it was supposed to be, like the resolution of the story.
Right.
Not in gross detail, or just, tell me how it was supposed to go. That's what I want.
Yu Suzuki did say at one point before Shenmue 3 came out, he was like, I want to finish the story, and if it needs to be done in a book, I will do it. But clearly, he hasn't hit that breaking point.
He has not.
He hired George R.R. Martin to do it.
Oh, well, that makes
ghostwriter.
That makes sense. I get the feeling that if he gets the chance to do 4, it will end on a cliffhanger. Hopefully more will happen. But I have this strange feeling, because it's Yu Suzuki, that he is not going to compromise on the idea that this has to be multiple games. And I think 5 is the minimum he'd be okay with. Especially if it was condensed down to 11 chapters, and Shenmue 3 is either it's 6 and 7, maybe, and so then 4 would be 8 and 9. and then 5 would be the conclusion. Unless he goes, we're going back to 16 chapters, we're doing this, which, and all bets are off. But he's built it up in his head. Rightfully, he is a gaming legend, justifiably so. He is
Space Harrier, Air Twister.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Outrun.
I mean, he's the reason Sega made so much money in the 80s. Yeah, you can't deny that.
I threw Air Twister in there, but saying it again.
I mean, why not? Yes. And right. I mean, Virtua Fighter alone is the only reason Sega ever had a console that did well in Japan. So that probably, made him feel good. Like, I don't think he can ever step back and go, maybe I overreached. Maybe I wanted to do too much, but it's better to just end it. Just wrap it up and say, here we go. I think because it's been so long and because of who he is, he won't be satisfied until it is exactly what he wants it to be. And that means we're getting 5 games.
Now, he has publicly said that he thinks a 4 would be much faster and cheaper to develop because it's like, I have all these assets for 3. I have a team that learned how to work in Unreal Engine 4. We can just churn this thing out.
Well, Yu Suzuki says one thing when he's pitching the game and another thing when he's developing the game. When he's pitching the game, he's like, it's no problem. We're going to do it all in the one. When he's developing the game, he's like, this game is impossible it's not possible for this to be one game. How dare you?
I was going to say, could Sega just make Shenmue 4 on their own without him?
They could.
That's a question. Yeah.
I think they could. Because Shenmue 3, Yu Suzuki had to go get permission from Sega to use the product, which is why you don't have the Sega little capsule toys or the real arcade games.
Yeah, they weren't involved at all, were they? Yeah. Not even publishing.
No. I want to say it was Deep Silver did the publishing.
Yeah.
On 3. And you get like parodies of the games instead. Like in 3, there is something that resembles Virtua Fighter you can play in the arcades, but it's like little chicken toys button mashing at one another, and you only get to play 1 round.
That's no fun.
I've been doing the Rings of Saturn. I'm trying to establish myself as like the person for pulling obscure things out of Saturn games. All of this is in service of A, somebody leaking me the Tokyo Game Show version of Burning Rangers, and B, leaking me the Saturn version of Shenmue. We know that it existed. There's video of it. It's in the promo materials for Shenmue.
Somebody must have it.
Somebody's got that disc. Yeah. Somebody needs to send me that image. I'm very discreet. I'm very thorough in my researching. And, I am the right person to handle this knowledge.
And if you want it on the show, you can email sonicweeklypodcast@gmail.com and we'll spoil the whole thing. Right, David?
Oh, yeah, that's right. So if you're listening out there, if you're like, man, I've got like 100 prototypes of extremely rare Sega games just sitting in my attic, send an email. Let us know. And while it's in the post, why don't you listen to the next episode of Sonic Weekly, just like you listened to this episode of Sonic Weekly, the only podcast called Sonic Weekly about Sonic the Hedgehog once a week and thereabouts, and sometimes not Sonic at all, but always Sega, because we love Sega, and we love sounds, and we love life, and we love Shenmue. And if you love this show, and you want to show it a little love, if you haven't already, you should subscribe using your pod catcher of choice, be that Apple Podcasts, be that Spotify, or for the Android faithful, Podcast Addict. Download it today, trademark, registered. But and then in-app, you can give us a review, give us a 5-star rating. That helps us. But if you don't even want to deal with a podcatcher, if they just go against all your sensibilities, we're over on YouTube. That's at Sonic-Weekly, where you can like, comment, and subscribe. And it's not just audio, it also features video game footage done by none other than friend of the show, Jackville Games. Whoa, and that's who is here today. That's right, he plays them all. Look at him, he's playing it right now. He's got a Dreamcast controller in one hand, a Saturn in another. He's a wild game-playing man.
The cat in his lap.
And the cat in his lap, right?
The cat from Shenmue.
All right.
Gotta feed it dried fish, right? Dry fish.
Yeah, right. See, because
Can't get
the
enough.
first time I played Shenmue, I didn't understand. I thought you had to highlight it, and I tried to move it over to the fish, but it went to the potato. Just threw a potato at the cat. And I was like, that basically explained the entire first playthrough of Shenmue. Also, we didn't even talk about the forklifting and the forklifting glitch, where you can get stuck in a loop and never beat the third day, which happened to me, and I had to go online and be like, why isn't anything happening?
I love that forklifting section. I love that you had to commute back and forth.
Yes. Hey, and that, commuting is a perfect way to listen to the show, but when you're not driving, you should drop us a line, SonicWeeklyPodcast@gmail.com. We have the mailbag section, and that's also how you ask for the link to our Discord server. Yeah, we'll shoot it over, and you can join and talk to some like-minded Sonic the Hedgehog fans about many things, including Sonic. But also, hey, you can talk Shenmue. We'll let you do it. We won't tell you now. If you want to support the show financially to help us offset the cost of hosting and production, we are also over at Ko-fi. We're just Sonic Weekly over there, where you can throw in something in the tip jar, or you can, for $5 a month, become an executive producer, just like PigDan, Pabsy, Sonikku, SavingThrows, Cal, it's Belgarion, I should really know, and AltSynth, no dash, as was established last week. Hey, and if you do that, you'll get some goodies from a wife of the Grant, Ashlyn. Send them right over. Gotta thank Smoovies for the edit. He's the one that's put this whole show together, polished off the rough edges. Thanks once again to Jack for being our guest on the show. Gotta thank the listeners. I don't know if I ever do. I mean, it's implicit, but thank you for listening, of course. And just like always, I gotta thank Bo and I gotta thank Grant, because without them, it would just be me in a dark room and I wouldn't know how to call anyone. I'd just be like, Rio picking up the phone, dialing in random phone numbers, and because most of them don't go to anything, it's just a pre-recorded message. And you can only last so long.
You'd be podcasting, but there would be nothing plugged in. It would just be like you're in the closet. Thank you, David. Thank you, listener. Bye-bye.